So in my last video, I covered the biggest weakness of every team in the Eastern Conference. And as promised, I will be doing the same for the Western Conference teams for this video. If you haven't watched it yet, there will be a link and an end card so you can watch it after the video if you haven't watched the Eastern Conference edition. But nonetheless, we are in the part of the NBA season where we're getting a clearer picture of what every team's real strengths and weaknesses are. And with the ultimate goal of an NBA championship in everyone's mind, there are certain questions and concerns teams must address in order to get closer to said goal, whether it be for this season at the trade deadline or in the couple years to come. But let's get straight to it, starting with the Golden State Warriors when healthy is, in my eyes, the greatest team of all time. But the key word is healthy, because this is a team that will need all of it in the playoffs. Okay, maybe not all of it. Now remember, when it comes to building a super team of this caliber, the main compromise that is made is depth. And you take that risk when you can get a player who can consistently play at a high level for 30 plus minutes a game. However, what happens when that player you get is injured is the problem. Now this is a concern for every team, and the Warriors do have enough stars to take one potential injury hit. But on the off chance that, let's say, Steph goes down for 2 weeks because of an ankle injury, which is not out of the ordinary, and Draymond goes down for 2 weeks as well with a groin injury in the playoffs, and now you're relying on KD, Clay, and Boogie with the depth that they have, now they don't look too scary. Scary still, but not as scary with Stephen Curry and Draymond. Now obviously injury is a big concern for every team, but especially for this team because of their expectations, the history of their players, and the way teams have really stepped up this year in the West, specifically to take down the Warriors, is going to be very pivotal to their success. The Denver Nuggets have been one of the most pleasant surprises in the league this season. I mean, many projected them to make the playoffs, but did many project them to have the second seed on pace for 55 wins in this Western Conference? Not in most people's books. And this big jump is what really concerns me, because the Nuggets deadass just went from being out of the playoffs to now being expected to make a run at the Western Conference Finals in just a matter of one offseason. And with the core consisting of 22-year-old Jamal Murray, 24-year-old Gary Harris, and 24-year-old Nikola Jokic, I just don't know how they'll handle such pressure in the playoffs. Look, I've gained this reputation of being a Russ/OKC hater, but trust me, I am way too busy these days to seriously be hating on a player or a team like that. But the Thunder have been playing amazing this year. They have been one of the best defensive teams in the league. Paul George has been playing at an MVP level. And shout out to Russell Westbrook as well, because his decrease in usage rate this season has been a huge part of the team's success and Paul George's success as well, and I commend him for that. He's also made some improvements on the defensive end, which is great. However, with that being said, Westbrook is still OKC's biggest weakness, while also being one of their biggest strengths at the same time, if that makes any sense. There are still so many games just from this season alone that I've watched where Russ's poor shooting has costed them games. Times where he does not give Paul George the ball when it should be in Paul George's hands. Times where he's taken extremely unnecessary contested jump shots. Times where he makes boneheaded passes late in the game and commit terrible turnovers. And these are things that in the past have cost the Thunder numerous playoff games and even whole playoff series. Some may even argue it's costed them the greatest player in their franchise history. And the fact that this is still a problem this year, I mean, despite all of Russ's improvements, it is still the biggest concern for the Oklahoma City Thunder going into the playoffs. The Trailblazers have become one of those teams that people know are a very solid team, but don't really expect anything out of. Like, they're not trash by any means, but most people expect a first or second round exit in the playoffs. But the biggest concern for this team has to be their backcourt defense. With a backcourt of Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum in the conference where you're going to be facing the likes of Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Paul George, Donovan Mitchell, DeMar DeRozan, and even the Denver backcourt that we were talking about earlier, not having enough good perimeter defenders to stop these guys will be a huge problem for this team in the playoffs. I mean, y'all saw what Rondo and Drew Holiday did last year. Just imagine what Steph and Clay would do to them if given the chance. James Harden has been playing phenomenal basketball, historic basketball this year. But this video, we are talking about the Houston Rockets as a team and their weaknesses. And this team has a lot of weaknesses. Number one, defense. They have the 4th worst defense in the league. Number two, this team is undoubtedly James Harden centric. Very similar to what the Cleveland Cavaliers were last year with LeBron James. This is a team whose success heavily depends on Harden's play. And I know what you're saying, which team doesn't depend on their star players' play? But you know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to the Houston Rockets. Everyone else's shot depends on James Harden's ability to manipulate the defense and create open looks for shooters. And as we've seen with every team that's built like this, like the Cleveland Cavaliers last year, like the Oklahoma City Thunder in 2017, like the Los Angeles Lakers in 2006, you can let that one high usage player get his numbers. But if you can lock down the other guys and deny them from developing rhythm, more often than not, that player will get very fatigued in the 7-game series, their offense falls apart, and you win the series. And to fix that, Chris Paul has to be 100% healthy for and throughout the playoffs to give them a real fighting chance in this Western Conference. While the Spurs are not as bad defensively as the Rockets, I would still say that this is still their biggest glaring weakness. When I look at the roster, there's barely any good to great defenders, and statistically, they are 19th in defensive rating as of the making of this video. I was thinking of 3-point shooting, and while the Spurs are dead last in 3-pointers attempted and bottom 5 in 3-pointers made, they are number 1 in the league in 3-point percentage. So what that tells me is that Pop has just made a system that emphasizes taking 3-pointers only when they're really good looks. And it's been pretty much working because despite the numbers I just said in this 3-point heavy league, they are still 7th in offensive rating and are still very much in the playoff race. Now, as far as the Clippers, the reason why I put them together with the Spurs is because literally everything I just said about the Spurs pretty much applies to the Clippers as well. Except they're 21st in defense instead of 19th. They're second to last in 3-pointers attempted. They're also bottom 5 as well in 3-pointers made, yet 11th in offensive rating. It's actually pretty scary how similar they are statistically speaking. The Utah Jazz were one of the most disappointing teams the first 20 or so games of the season. But happy to say they have been on fire lately, and Donovan Mitchell has been leading them at the helm the past 20 or so games, putting up amazing numbers. But the biggest issue this team has to address is finding another star perimeter player to pair up with Donovan Mitchell. Because the Jazz do have a great coach. They have great role players. They have one of the best centers in the league. And they have Donovan Mitchell. But I believe them adding another star perimeter player is the missing piece that they need to be taken seriously in this Western Conference. The Los Angeles Lakers have a very simple problem, and that is shooting. They're second to last in the league in 3-point percentage. They don't even take that many threes in the first place, as they're 17th in attempts, and they don't make much of them when they do. They are the second worst free throw shooting team in the league at an atrocious 69% from the line as a team. They just need to improve their shooting. It's pretty simple. Now the Sacramento Kings, man, I really like the Kings and the direction they're going in. And if we're going off this season alone, they do need to improve on both sides of the game, as they're bottom half of the league in offense and defensive rating. But as far as their future, just continue the development of De'Aaron, Buddy Hield, and the rest of the young guys, because I really like the culture and the style of play that they're starting to develop. So right now, I guess their biggest problem is development. Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins is Minnesota's biggest problem. Whether it be his play on the court with his extremely inefficient 18 points a game, not contributing much with his playmaking or defense, or his atrocious contract, which is a 5-year max deal that started this year, where he'll be making anywhere from $25 to $33 million a year till 2023. Andrew Wiggins is the biggest problem the Timberwolves must address, and that's all I'll say on that matter. This was a season that I thought the Pelicans were gonna surprise a lot of people. I really thought AD was gonna have one of those 0-4 KG seasons where, you know, screw the hell, I'm gonna carry this team to 50 plus wins, which is essentially what James Harden is doing this season. But because of injuries and the lack of help New Orleans has provided AD, the question that they've been trying to push aside and avoid the past couple of years needs to be answered sooner rather than later. So with the Pelicans, it really does come down to what they're gonna do with AD. Are they gonna try to make him stay, which is getting harder day by day? Or will they fold and finally trade him instead of potentially losing him for nothing in free agency? That is the question the New Orleans Pelicans must answer. Like the Sacramento Kings, I really love what the Mavs are doing. And although you look at the standings and they have the 3rd worst record in the conference, Luka has been so fun to watch this season. And with the Mavs, like any rebuilding team, it's just a matter of trying to develop an identity and add young talent to the team to help Luka and see where that takes you. So like the Sacramento Kings, it's just adding more talent and developing them. The Memphis Grizzlies are one of those we just need to sell tickets teams, and they have really been milking this Conley-Gasol era as much as they can. But let's just keep it a buck, it's time to move forward from this era. They need a new era, a new identity, and that starts with trading Mike Conley and Marc Gasol. To me, despite looking at Phoenix and the record, the Phoenix Suns should not be tanking. This is a team that already has all the young talent and projects that they could ask for. It's just a matter of development and finding the right veterans to help them grow to the potential stars that they can be. The Suns really should not be as bad as what they are right now with the number of lottery picks they've accumulated the past couple of years. So no, the Suns should not just tank for Zion. They actually need to come up with a plan to develop their players. Because if this is their plan, if it's just accumulating top 5 picks and you know, not developing them, I hope they don't get Zion. I really hope they don't. But there you go. The biggest problem for every team in the Western Conference. This is probably going to be one of my longest videos in a minute, so I would appreciate it if you threw a like on this video. Also, let me know what your team's biggest problem is in the comment section down below. Follow me on Instagram at bsouls. I go on IG Live pretty much every other day whenever there's something crazy going on in the NBA, or you know what I'm saying, just answering questions. It's a nice way to interact with y'all on a more personal level. So follow me on Instagram if you haven't. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't as well. Upload every Tuesday and Friday. Although depending on how fast I edit this video, some of y'all might be watching this on a Saturday, but trust me, I have been doing a pretty decent job with staying consistent with the upload schedule. But with that being said, I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and I'm out. Peace.